A detective named Daniel investigates a missing girl who vanished at the cursed Garrison House. Inside, he finds her red ribbon caught in a floorboard and hears a whisper calling his name. They told me the case was closed. Paperwork stamped, evidence sealed, name crossed off the board in thick red ink. But when I close my eyes, I still hear it, the soft scraping sound beneath the floorboards of the old Garrison House. It started 3 years ago. A missing girl, 16, with a red ribbon in her hair. Last seen at the abandoned estate on the edge of town, a place locals swore was cursed long before the girl ever set foot there. The townsfolk said they heard crying at night, echoing from the hollow rooms where dust danced in the moonlight. When I first entered that house, it greeted me like something alive, the air heavy, damp, humming with a low vibration that wasn't quite sound but more like presence. I remember my boots creaking on warped wood, the smell of mold and iron filling my lungs. Every step felt watched. I found her ribbon in the parlor, tangled in a splinter of floorboard, as if it had been pulled downward. I told myself it was just caught by accident, but when I tried to lift it free, the board moved. Just slightly, enough to feel something shift beneath. That's when the whisper began. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the house settling. It said my name. I tore up the board that night, and what I saw should have ended my career. Instead, it became my obsession. The case was declared solved months later. But the whisper, it never stopped. And last night, it spoke again. The sound came just after midnight, a wet inhale, as if the house itself had lungs. I was sitting at my desk, the case file open despite every order to let it rest. The wind outside pressed against the windows, and the walls creaked like bones shifting in a coffin. Then it came again, that breath. Slow, labored, coming from beneath me. I froze. The whisper of my name followed, soft, pleading, familiar. Daniel. Only 3 people ever called me that. 2 are dead. 1 was the girl. I stood, hand reaching for my revolver, though bullets had no place in a haunting. The floorboards under the desk bulged slightly, dust rising in thin streams, as though something exhaled from below. I backed away and the air grew colder, each breath hanging before me like smoke. Then the smell hit, sweet, cloying, unmistakable. Decay. Not old rot. Not something buried and forgotten, but fresh, present. I forced myself to kneel, pressed my ear to the warped wood. Silence. Then a faint thump-thump, like a heartbeat trapped in the floor. It was weaker than I remembered, but it was there. My mind raced. Had someone been buried alive? Was there a hidden cellar, some unfinished horror beneath the house? I grabbed my crowbar, pried at the edge of the board. The nail screamed, the wood splintered, and a gust of air rushed out, colder than winter, smelling of grave soil. Inside the gap, something shifted, pale, wet, human-looking, and it breathed. I stumbled back, the crowbar clattering from my hand. And then, from the darkness below, a girl's voice rose. "Detective, you left me here." Her voice froze the blood in my veins. Not because it was loud. No, it came in fragments, like sound struggling through water. A whisper half-drowned, yet heavy with accusation. "Detective, you left me here." I stood there, every instinct torn between running and tearing up the entire floor. The pale thing beneath the boards had stilled, but the air still pulsed, a slow rhythm like breath that wasn't mine. I found the trapdoor later, hidden beneath a carpet of dust in the next room. Its iron ring was slick with rust and something darker. When I pulled it open, the smell hit harder, thicker, choking with the stench of wet earth and forgotten time. My flashlight flickered once before deciding to stay alive, mercifully. The stairs were narrow, spiraling down into a space that shouldn't have existed. The Garrison House wasn't supposed to have a cellar. I'd seen the blueprints myself, but someone, or something, had carved this hollow beneath it, and the walls bore marks. Fingernail marks. Hundreds of them. At the bottom, water dripped from the ceiling in steady rhythm. My light caught old furniture, broken dolls, and scraps of fabric, red ribbons among them. Each one tied neatly to a nail hammered into the wall, like a collection of offerings. And then I saw the writing. It wasn't paint. It wasn't ink. Just the same phrase, over and over again. "She's not gone." My hand shook as I traced the last line, the letters still wet. Fresh. Then, from behind me, came the faint creak of the trapdoor closing, and the sound of bare feet descending the stairs. The sound of those footsteps wasn't hurried. They were slow, careful, bare feet pressing against rotted wood. Each step followed by a faint, wet sound, like skin leaving a mark behind. I turned my flashlight toward the stairs. Nothing, just the faint shimmer of dust in the beam. "Who's there?" I called, my voice steady only because fear had nowhere left to go. It had settled deep inside me, cold and dense, like a second heart. The light flickered again, and then she was standing there. The girl, or what was left of her. Her dress hung in tatters, soaked with something dark that glistened like oil. The ribbon was still in her hair, bright red, almost too red, the only color in that room of shadows. But where her eyes should have been, there was only smooth, pale skin, stretched tight and scarred. She tilted her head as if studying me, as if she could still see. When she spoke, her mouth didn't move. The words came from everywhere at once, from the walls, the floor, from inside my skull. "Why did you stop digging, detective?" My throat tightened. "You were gone. They said. They lied." The whisper turned to a rasp. "You buried the wrong thing." She began to move toward me, each step leaving small, wet imprints on the stone. The walls trembled. The nails holding the ribbons began to shake, one by one dropping to the floor with tiny metallic clicks. The air thickened with the sound of breathing, dozens of breaths, coming from the walls themselves. My light stuttered and died, leaving only the faint red glow of the ribbons swaying in the dark. And then, she was right in front of me. I felt her cold fingers brush my face, tracing my eyes as if measuring them. When she whispered again, it wasn't her voice anymore. It was mine. When she spoke in my voice, it didn't echo, it sank, like a whisper meant only for my bones. I stumbled backward, the flashlight clattering uselessly to the wet stone floor. My words, the ones I thought, came back to me through her lips a heartbeat later, warped, delayed, like a recording played from inside a dream. "I didn't leave you," I said aloud. And a moment later she mouthed it back, expressionless. "I didn't leave you." The air rippled. Something shifted in the walls, a low groan that ran through the house from the foundation to the rafters. The floor trembled beneath my boots as if the building were taking a breath for the first time in years. Then came the sounds. Hinges screaming upstairs, shutters slamming open, glass breaking in a far-off room. The house moved. Not a draft, not settling. It shifted, timbers cracking, doorways twisting out of shape. I ran for the stairs, but they were no longer stairs, just a spiraling mess of boards and bone-colored roots winding downward, not up. The cellar had changed. Every step I took, the walls seemed to pulse, damp and alive. Behind me, her voice rose again, now multiplied. Dozens of voices, hundreds, all whispering in tones that overlapped and merged into one endless murmur. "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" The ribbons on the floor began to writhe, curling like veins beneath the surface. They glowed faintly, crimson in the dark. Then the whispering stopped, and in that silence, the house sighed. Somewhere in that blackness, a door opened on its own, not with a creak, but a sound like breath being drawn through teeth. And a voice, not hers, not human, spoke softly from the new darkness. "Detective, you've finally come home." The new door stood at the far end of the cellar, tall, narrow, carved from dark wood that didn't match the rest of the house. It looked almost wet, as though it had been grown, not built. My light, faint and dying, caught a gleam on its surface, not varnish, but something that looked disturbingly like sweat. I knew every inch of the Garrison house from the investigation 3 years ago. This door hadn't existed then. Yet now, it waited for me like it had always been part of the design. Behind me, the cellar seemed to breathe slower. The girl's whisper had fallen silent, but I could still feel her nearby, that cold pressure in the air, the scent of old rain and metal. I should have turned back, but the door it pulled at me. Each step closer made the world distort. The sound of dripping water stretched into low moans, and my heartbeat began to sync with something deeper, something buried. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle, an old brass knob shaped like a curled serpent. When I touched it, it felt warm, alive, and then, faintly, it pulsed. I turned it before I could change my mind. The door opened onto a narrow hallway that shouldn't have existed. It sloped downward into the earth, lined with wooden panels covered in carvings. At first I thought they were symbols, maybe old runes, but when I looked closer, I realized they were faces. hundreds of them, mouths open in silent screams. As I stepped through, the door closed behind me with a soft, final click. I spun, tried the handle, nothing. It was gone, replaced by a smooth wall of cold stone. Only one way left to go. Forward. And somewhere ahead, in the dark, something whispered, not my name this time, but the name of the girl. Slowly, tenderly, as if whatever waited there loved her once. The air in that passage had weight to it. Thick, old, still carrying the breath of those who had screamed and never left. Every step I took stirred up the scent of candle wax, wet clay, and something faintly sweet, like rotting flowers. My beam cut along the carved faces. At first they seemed fixed in anguish, but the longer I looked, the more they shifted. Lips trembled, eyes fluttered open and closed. Each mouth formed shapes of words I couldn't quite hear, only feel, small shocks against my skin, like static or whispered prayers. Halfway down the corridor, a lantern hung from a hook, still burning. Someone had been here. Recently. Its flame guttered as I approached, and for a heartbeat I saw my reflection in the glass. Only it wasn't mine. It was hers. The eyeless girl, smiling faintly from inside the flame. The light went out. Then came the tapping. Soft, deliberate. From behind the faces in the wall. Tap, 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 pause, tap. A pattern. Almost like code. I pressed my ear to the wood. There were voices behind it, muffled, close, whispering names I half remembered from old case files. Victims, unsolved, forgotten. I backed away, heart hammering, and the tapping grew faster, urgent, until the wood began to splinter. The carved mouths opened wider, splitting the panels as if the people inside were pushing to get out. I ran, or tried to. The corridor bent in on itself, curving like a spine, every step bringing me past the same faces again and again. Their eyes followed me now, real eyes, wet and shining in the dim light. Then, from somewhere ahead, a door appeared, iron this time, streaked with rust, a faint light bleeding from beneath it. And beneath that light, a sound. Someone humming. A lullaby. The same lullaby that played from the music box found with the girl's body 3 years ago. The humming was soft at first, fragile, almost kind. It floated through the iron door like a memory I tried too long to bury. The melody was broken in places, as though sung by someone who no longer remembered how to breathe between notes. I pushed the door open, and the hinges groaned like a wounded animal. Inside, the room was small, round, windowless, and lit by candles that burned with blue fire. Wax had run down the walls in long, hardened rivers. In the center stood a child's bed, perfectly made, with a thin white sheet tucked under a single pillow. On the pillow sat the music box, the same one I'd logged as evidence 3 years ago. Its handle turned by itself, slow and steady, playing that haunting tune. I stepped closer. Each note seemed to echo off the walls in strange ways, as if bouncing between invisible mirrors. My reflection flickered in the brass casing. First mine, then hers, then something else. Something smiling. And then the humming joined the music. No longer behind the door, but in the room. Right behind me. I turned, fast. Nothing. The candles flickered violently, their flames stretching toward me like grasping hands. The air pressed tight around my chest. Beneath the lullaby, another sound rose, the slow creak of rope under tension. The ceiling above the bed sagged, and then I saw it. A shape suspended in the shadows. Small feet, pale and motionless, swinging slightly above the mattress. A girl, hanging, her body swaying with the rhythm of the music. But her head turned toward me. Her face was blank, smooth skin where eyes and mouth should have been, the same as before. Then her voice came from the box itself, faint but clear. You took me down once. Why did you hang me back up? The sheet on the bed rippled. Something underneath it moved. Slowly, breathing. And the lullaby began to rewind on its own. The lullaby twisted backward, notes unraveling, melody disintegrating into something that sounded like whispers played in reverse. My hands shook as I reached for the sheet. It rose and fell with a slow, measured rhythm, like someone asleep. Or pretending. The hanging body above me swayed closer, her toes brushing the air just inches from my face. The music box's lid snapped shut on its own, the sound sharp enough to make the candles flicker out. Only the faint blue glow from beneath the bed remained. Who's under there? I whispered. My voice sounded foreign in that dark, hollow space. A pause. Then, a breath. Wet, shallow, almost thoughtful. I gripped the corner of the sheet and pulled. It came away fast, too fast, revealing not one body, but two. One small and still, the girl as she'd been found years ago, her face peaceful, eyes closed. And wrapped tightly around her like a lover clinging to a corpse was something else. Thin, gray, boneless, its long fingers tangled in her hair. Its head twitched when the light touched it, and where a mouth should have been, there was only a gash, deep, red, and smiling. It looked up at me. The air dropped to freezing. My breath turned white. Then it began to crawl, backward, impossibly fast, melting into the wall like smoke slipping into cracks. The body on the bed stayed still, but her lips parted. She whispered one word. Trade. I staggered back. The floor beneath me flexed, soft, spongy, like muscle. The girl's eyes opened, glassy and full of reflected candlelight. She wasn't seeing me. She was seeing through me. And from the corner of the room came the soft sound of the music box winding itself again. Only this time, I hadn't touched it. Then her voice, calm, pleading, too close, spoke directly into my ear. You can let me go if something takes my place. Her words hung in the air like frost. You can let me go if something takes my place. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the motionless girl on the bed, her eyes wide and clouded, her mouth still half open from the whisper. Every instinct told me to run, to claw my way back through the corridor, to feel real air again. But the house had gone utterly silent. Even my heartbeat seemed distant, muffled, as though I'd already left my body behind. What do you mean, take your place? I asked. My voice barely broke the dark. The girl's head tilted slightly, a puppet tugged by unseen strings. Balance, she breathed. The house remembers. It doesn't forgive. From the wall behind her, that gray, boneless thing began to reform, dripping out of the stone like wax. Its limbs unfolded, too many, too long. It crawled toward me on all fours, dragging a sound behind it like claws scraping glass. But its face, now it had one. Mine. You solved me, it said, using my own voice. Now finish it. I backed away, my hand finding the revolver at my hip out of pure habit, but there was no safety in lead or noise here. I fired anyway. The shot tore through the air, ringing off the walls, but the creature didn't bleed. The hole in its chest simply closed, skin knitting back together like soft clay. The girl on the bed sat up. Every door must close from both sides, she whispered. One leaves, one stays. You opened it, detective. The house wants you now. The creature lunged. I fell backward, the music box clattering to the floor. It sprang open, and the lullaby began again, now warped, faster, desperate. The candle flames burst into life all at once, blue and violet. In their light, I saw it clearly, the girl reaching toward me, her hand outstretched, trembling, human. Behind her, the creature's grin widening. And then, I took her hand. The world went white. White. Not the kind of white that comes from light, the kind that blinds and burns, but the white of emptiness. The sound fell away first. No heartbeat, no music box, not even the creak of the living house. Just a vast, deaf silence that pressed against my skin like cold mist. Then came the smell, earth, rain, and something faintly metallic. Blood, maybe, or memory. When the light thinned, I found myself standing in the same room, but hollowed. The walls were bare, the bed gone. The candles melted into puddles of ash. Only the music box remained, open, its gears still twitching, whispering a single broken note again and again, a sound like a dying breath. At first, I thought the girl was gone too. Then I saw her, standing by the door that had once been iron, now just a shape of darkness. She looked alive. Her eyes were back, blue, shimmering with tears. She smiled at me, small and uncertain, like someone remembering how to be human. It's done, she said softly. You kept your promise. My throat felt dry. What did I promise? Her smile faded. To stay. I looked down and saw the shadow beneath me wasn't mine anymore. It was longer, twisted, its edges still moving, breathing. My reflection in the floorboards blinked a heartbeat too late. The air around me pulsed, slow, deep, rhythmic. The same heartbeat I'd heard beneath the floor years ago. It wasn't the house breathing after all. It was me. The girl stepped toward the door, light gathering around her like dawn. "The house won't wake again," she whispered. "You made sure of that." As she vanished into that light, her final words lingered in the empty space. Every story needs a keeper. The walls began to close in, and I understood. The case wasn't closed. It was sealed. At first, I thought I'd died. The silence was too complete, the darkness too gentle. But then I heard it, the soft rhythm of the house breathing again, only slower now, steadier, as if it had finally fallen asleep. And I was inside it. The walls pulsed faintly with light from somewhere deep within the wood, veins glowing under the surface. I pressed my hand against the wall, and it pressed back, warm, alive, aware. I felt seen. Somewhere above me, faint voices murmured, like guests wandering through empty rooms. Footsteps creaked, laughter echoed, brief, faded fragments of life that no longer existed. I knew those sounds. Every investigation I'd ever worked, every witness, every lie, they were all here, replaying like ghosts in a dream. Then I heard the front door open. A man's voice, low, cautious. "Detective, you in here?" I knew that voice. My partner, from years ago. He was calling for me. They must have reopened the case. I tried to answer, but the sound wouldn't come. Only the walls groaned, deep and mournful, the voice of old wood and older secrets. My thoughts echoed through them instead, whispers sliding through the structure like air through pipes. He froze. I could feel his heartbeat, quickening. He thought it was the wind. But I was there, just beneath the floor, just behind the walls. Watching, listening. The Garrison House was mine now. Or maybe I was its. When he took a step further inside, I felt the boards tense beneath him, almost eager. Dust fell like slow snow from the rafters. Somewhere deep in the foundations, the music box began to play again, soft, broken, but still alive. I tried to warn him. I did. But all the house let through was a whisper. "Welcome home." His footsteps echoed down the hall. Too loud, too confident for a place that hated noise. The Garrison House didn't like intruders. I could feel it bristling around him, the old wood swelling with the slow inhale before a storm. He called my name again. "Daniel? You there?" It hurt, hearing it. That sound of my name, shaped by a living throat. The world outside had forgotten me, but his voice made the old instincts stir, the detective's impulse to answer, to explain. I pressed against the wall where I thought he stood, but my hand passed through the wood like smoke. I wasn't solid anymore. Just thought and memory, bound to timber and dust. He moved into the parlor, the same room where I'd found the ribbon, where the floorboards still whispered when you stepped too hard. He crouched, ran his hand along the boards. "Feels hollow," he muttered. "Don't open it," I thought. "Please." But the house heard my fear. It liked fear. The nails lifted themselves one by one, squealing softly. The boards pried apart, and the smell rolled out. Not rot this time, but something older, wetter. My partner gagged, stumbled back. Then he saw it. The crowbar I dropped 3 years ago. The faint shape of a handprint scorched into the wood beside it. And beneath the floor, a pale glimmer, like an eye opening. The whisper started again, but it wasn't mine now. It was the girl's voice, tender and sly. "Another detective," she said. "Another story." He froze, flashlight shaking. "Who's there?" From deep in the walls, I felt the house shift, stretching, smiling. The music box somewhere below began to play, slow and sweet. I tried to scream, but all that came out through the cracks was a sigh, and a single phrase the house made me say. "It's all right. You'll see her soon." The door slammed shut behind him. The house locked him in as easily as a coffin taking its last nail. I could feel it tightening, beams settling, wallpaper peeling back like dead skin, the slow heartbeat of wood pulsing through every floorboard. He was trapped inside the same lungs that now breathed for me. He shouted for help. The sound rang up through the halls, through me. His flashlight cut across the parlor, the beam trembling over the old wallpaper where faces had once seemed to shift. Now, they smiled openly, carved deep into the plaster. New faces. His. Mine. Hers. He knelt by the hole in the floor, aiming the light downward. "Daniel," he whispered. "Is that you?" For a moment, the light caught me, or what was left of me. The shape in the dark beneath the boards looked familiar. The outline of a man hunched, motionless, staring upward with empty eyes. I wanted to warn him, to tell him to run. But the house had taken that voice, twisted it into something that sounded kind. Come closer, I whispered through the cracks. You can free me. He hesitated. The living always do, then reached down. His fingers brushed the edge of the floor, and the wood rippled like water. The boards opened wider, the darkness yawning to swallow him whole. The girl's laughter danced up the stairs. Soft, musical, wrong. Balance, she sang. Always balance. He screamed once. The house shuddered, then sighed, a long, contented breath. The board sealed. The air stilled. Silence returned. And in that silence, I felt something new beside me. Someone new. The house had another voice now, whispering through its veins. Younger. Confused. Daniel, it said. Where are we? I looked toward the sound, my own voice now just part of the hum. Home, I said. We're home. Dawn came. Or at least, something that looked like dawn. A thin, gray shimmer bleeding through the cracks of boarded windows. The kind of light that can't warm anything. The house was quiet. Still. Satisfied. I could feel the new heartbeat deep in its frame. My partner's, fading into rhythm with mine. The girl's laughter was gone now, replaced by the sound of a lullaby playing somewhere far below, faint as a memory dissolving in rain. Sometimes, when the wind moves just right, I hear the world outside. Cars passing, children laughing, the echo of a life I once believed in. But the house doesn't let me linger there. It reminds me, gently, firmly, that I belong to it now, to the stories that never end, only change their voices. In the front parlor, one window still stands unshuttered. Through it, I can see the road leading back to town, the crooked fence, the weeds reclaiming the path. People come sometimes. The curious, the brave, the lost. They step close to the gate, drawn by the whisper they swear they heard in their dreams. Tonight, I feel someone coming again. A woman, maybe. Young. Carrying a camera and the kind of confidence that only comes before fear. The house stirs, eager. Dust trembles down from the rafters. As she reaches the porch, the old light in the window flickers on by itself. A single bulb that's burned for years without power, its glow pale and patient. I stand behind it, watching her through the warped glass. She looks up, and for a heartbeat, our eyes meet. I raise my hand. She smiles, thinking she's seen a reflection, a trick of dawn. But as the door begins to open, all on its own, the music box starts again, its melody slower than before, almost tender. And I whisper, not to her, but to the house. Another story. The door swings wide. The light fades. Case closed. Never forgotten.